All right. Wow. 9:56. Do you guys have lunch plans? So before I get started, I just thought that maybe we would just take a moment of silence just to pray for the families, Texas, Ohio, that kind of stuff is just heartbreaking. It's hard to know what to do with that. And so just take a few moments, just lift those families up. It's a dark time for them, and then I'll pray and we'll get started. Father, we thank you for your word, that it's truth. We thank you that you are a good God, that you are sovereign, you are in control, that we can trust you, as we've been talking about. We can put our foundation on you, that we can come to you with the things that don't make sense. Jesus, I know in this room, there's hurting people. There's people who have really hard diagnosis, just really hard things. So God, even in those moments, I just pray that this morning as we open up your word, that we can hear your truth, that we can be transformed by your work, not our own, and just to really trust and to rely on that. God, just may this be your words as we just take a few moments and fill in the gaps, because you know each person's heart and you know what they need. I just pray you'll be speaking to them. In your son's name, amen. All right, so really quickly this morning, I'm going to try to capture just in a few moments just this idea of access, what our theme was for the week, and kind of telling it through just some of my own story, my own personal, what that access looks like into the kingdom. And then my hope is to be able to share a couple things, especially for the students, life after camp, life after these big moments, after these life-changing moments. What does that look like? And I just have a couple things, two things, hopefully we get that far to be able to share with you guys just this journey that we're on. But when you think of access, here's the definition: permission, liberty, ability to enter, approach, or pass to and from, a place to approach or communicate. Basically, you're in. You're on the inside. You're welcome. There's a place for you, right? And then this idea of not access. There should be a picture of a little girl. I'm not seeing it on my iPad. Is there a picture of a little girl? Oh, weird. I guess I didn't bring those in. Okay. So there's a picture of a little girl. You have to imagine this. She's standing at one of those, you must be this high to ride, and she's like 3 inches too short, and she's standing there with a really small pouty face, like, I didn't make it, right? Access denied. You can't come in. You're not tall enough. Right? And for you kids in here, you've probably experienced that in different ways, right? Like, I really want to go on that roller coaster, but I'm not tall enough. I can't make it. Now, I know it probably surprises you, but I was the shortest person in my class growing up. I know, it's amazing, right? And so me and Jonathan Keefe, we were the shortest kids. That happened to me a lot. Like, all my friends get a ride, why can't I? And kids, as you're growing up, there's these different things, right? Like, I can't drive a car until I'm 16. You don't have access, right? You don't get to go to college until you get your high school diploma. So all these things that we get to look forward to that we're growing up, man, I just can't wait, right? So we know access denied, what that feels like. And maybe for you, some of you kids, I don't know if any of you eat at the kids' table, and you're like, I really want to be at the adults' table, right? And so maybe you feel like Elf here, like, I'm big enough, right? Like, when do I get to go and be part of the adults' table? For me as a kid, to be able to go play pinochle with the adults. Like, my family were serious pinochle players. Like, you didn't just show up and play, like, you had to know what you were doing. And for those of you who don't know what pinochle is, it's a card game. It's you have trump, you have melds, you have to bid, you pass cards, so you're not totally bidding on what's in your hand. It's super high pressure. Like, if you mess up, you may not be asked to come back. right? So, like, it was, for me growing up, to be able to ask, it was like a huge privilege to be able to come to that table, to that pinochle table and play. But there was a lot of pressure. What if I messed up? And it's amazing how much that picture of being at the pinochle table has come to define my story and how I live. I have access if I'm doing everything right. I have access if I don't screw it up. If I have access if I make the right play at the right time. And so that was much of my story growing up. On the outside, I had to put on this front, this picture. I was a great kid in high school. I was the kid you wanted in your classroom. Because on the outside, I listened and I paid attention. But there was this underlying fear this whole time. I'm only accepted if. There's only access if. And for a lot of us, we come in this morning and it's like, God, do I have access to the throne of God? Do I measure up? Do I pass this, you must be this high to ride? And honestly, the answer to that question is no. You don't. In your own goodness, in your own righteousness, in your own ability, you don't. You don't have access to the throne of God because he is perfect and you are not. And that line, it doesn't matter. It's not like a couple inches. It's like it's huge. You don't measure up. But one of my favorite sayings in the Bible, in Romans 5 and Ephesians 2, but God. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, but God demonstrated his own love for us, that while you were yet sinners, Christ died for you. In Ephesians chapter 3, you were dead, but God made you alive. And so, here's the picture. I'm not tall enough. I never will be, but when I'm on Jesus' shoulders, I'm in. I made it. I'm tall enough now. Because it's not me who has to be tall. It's me resting on that. And that's what access to the throne, access to the table is about. You can't come in your own goodness. And guess what? If you can't come in your own goodness, you can't screw it up. Because it wasn't you who brought you there. It was him. Right? Oh, but what if I screw it up? So this idea of a table has come to mean a lot to my own story. This place, there's a place for you. Here's my cup. There's a place for you at this table because God has made a way for you to be there. When a dark time in my life, there's several, but I spent time at Crossroad Counseling for a week-long intensive with Pete Kuiper. And one of those things that you do there is you pray and you use your imagination as you're praying. Like, Jesus, speak to me through my imagination. What are you showing me? And the picture that came to mind was a little kid wanting to be at the table. Do I have a place there? Do you have a place at that table? And the picture was Jesus saying, here's your spot, man. I've been reserved. This is your spot. You have a spot at the table. And here's the picture I saw as this little kid throughout my life. I'll come and I'll sit down for a little while. I'm like, yeah, I like being at the table. This is cool. But what if I mess up? So I run away because I feel like I have to earn. Jesus, look at me, I did enough. Look, I did enough. Look, I get to be at the table. He's like, no, you don't understand. To that little kid, hey, it's okay. Sit down. You have a spot. This is your spot. This spot is always here. You always have that access. Don't get up. Don't leave the table. It's not me who's given up on you. It's you leaving the table. Stay. You're welcome. And that's the picture this week that we talked about, this picture of access. You have a place. You have a place at the table, and you didn't earn it. You didn't deserve it. It was a gift. But stay there. And what happens for kids, for myself, you have these like big moments, these like camp-like moments, these big experiences. Calvin talked about like, man, this week I experienced the love of God, and it was big. It was a mountaintop experience. And then what happens is I come back to regular life. The music isn't as good. The speaker isn't as good. I can't listen to that guy for 5 hours, maybe 20 minutes. The way my friends came together and like the way we served and so you can think about just in your own life like some of those big moments that you've had, that you've experienced that love of God in a very real and very tangible way. And it's necessary. Jesus took his disciples, and we were going to look at this a little bit more this morning, but I'll just kind of talk through it because it's amazing how much it was like a camp-like experience. But Jesus took his disciples to the top of the mountain, and he transformed. Moses and Elijah were there, and it says in there, it says in Luke that Peter and John were a little sleepy. I was like, man, that's just like camp in the morning. Wait, what are we doing? And it says they woke up, and they were like, whoa, like what is happening here? And Peter's first question is, can we stay? I'm going to build some tents, and we're going to stay up here on the mountain. And I had several kids tell me at the end when we were leaving, can we stay another week? No! We cannot stay another week. But we want to, but that picture, right? Like I'm close, I experience that I want to stay. But here's the thing, and mountaintops are great, but you can't live there. Think about that for a moment. There's not a lot of life on top of a mountain. The flowers fade out, there's no trees, the air is thinner. Like it's beautiful, it's glorious, but you can't live there, right? It's in the valleys where life thrives. The trees are growing, the rivers are there. And so to take like that experience, and bring it down into the everyday life is really what we want to do. So last summer, Levi and Joel and I, we climbed the Creststones. And I don't know if you remember last summer, but it didn't rain all summer, right? It was really hot, except for the weekend that we decided to do some peaks. And we got up super early. We backpacked the night before, and it was dark. We got up like at 3 a.m. to start hiking, and the trail was really hard to find because there were willows, and it was all wet. It wasn't raining at that time, but it might as well had been because it had rained the night before. And I don't know if you've ever hiked through willows up above your head, but you're just drenched, right? And we were in and off the trail. Those of you who don't know, the Creststones are really steep. They're difficult peaks, and we're freezing, and it was hard, and we're tired, and like, what are we doing? This isn't working very well. But we came out of tree line, and we came up to the first ridge. This is what greeted us. It's beautiful, right? And life often feels like that. Like, oh, I'm in the valley, and it's really hard. And we have moments like this where we come up, and it's like, oh, yes, this is worth it. It's so beautiful. His glory's here. But now we have to come back down. So, two things really quickly. We're going to kind of go through this. Life in the valley, life living at this table, life understanding who I am in Christ and what he has done for me, life moving on as I step is really about small choices. Jesus says in Matthew 7:13, enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. The writer of Proverbs expands a little bit on this. He says, listen, my son, accept what I say, and the years of your life will be many. I instruct you in the way of wisdom and lead you along straight paths. When you walk, your steps will not be hampered. When you run, you will not stumble. Hold on to instruction. Do not let it go. Guard it well, for it is your life. Do not set on the path of the wicked or walk in the way of evildoers. Avoid it. Do not travel on it. Turn from it. Go on your way. For they cannot rest until they do evil. They are robbed of sleep until they make someone stumble. They eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. The path of the righteous is like the morning sun, shining even brighter to the full light of day. But the way of the wicked is like deep darkness. They do not know what makes them stumble. My son, pay attention to what I say. Turn your ear to my words. Do not let them out of your sight. Keep them within your heart, for they are life to those who find them and health to one's whole bodies. And finally, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. So, guys, life is not about these big moments. It's about the small choices that you make every day, that you're going to be either stepping onto this path that's going to either lead you to life or it's going to lead you to more destruction. And we have these choices in front of us each day that I'm either growing or I'm not. And Dallas Willard said this, because this has really always kind of helped me as I thought about like what Jesus says. Maybe? This is so weird. It was all here. Anyway, Dallas Willard said something along the lines that when Jesus says something, it's not some esoteric truth for super religious people. He's just making observations about life. And so he's making an observation. Either your path is going to be leading to more life, or it's going to be leading to more destruction. I used to think it was about heaven and hell, and ultimately it is. But when I'm at this table, when I'm following Jesus, I have this access of either keep following him in everyday steps, one step after the other, or I can keep walking away from him. So these little choices, these life choices that we make are super important. One of the reasons why camp was so good for all of us is how do we start our day? With a quiet time. We went into worship and some teaching. We did some serving. At night, we close with that. Like those little rhythms of life make such a big deal in helping us grow. Yesterday, I was talking with my kids, one of my kids. They were playing a game, and so often happens in that game. In games with kids, they get angry with each other. They throw the piece at each other. Well, I didn't do it right. And so maybe because I was thinking about this with so much on my mind, just these little steps, right? Like sit them down and just talk about this anger, like where's it coming from? Like what's this about, right? And why are we getting angry? And then kind of looking at family members, not going to name any names because that's not healthy, who are consumed by their anger. There is a lot of anger in my family. There's a lot of anger. And to be able to talk with my child about this and say, if we don't start dealing with this now, this is the end path of that decision. If I don't start making choices now to start understanding where this anger is coming from, Jesus, will you help me in this? The end result is going down that path. And I won't be able to control it. It will control me. Little choices matter. I don't think any of those shooters we don't know anything about them except that they had a sad, they didn't feel connected. They didn't wake up one morning and said, this is what I'm going to do. It was a series of choices that led to this step, which led to this step, which led to this step, which then finally came just horrific destruction. So these little choices, guys, matter. They matter a big deal. Now, the thing is about this, though, is this can't just be your will. You can't just will yourself to do it. You don't have the strength, the ability. I don't have the strength. It's not just me. It's not just me. I have to fix my anger issues. It's not just me making these decisions. What's interesting is, coming back to the writer of Proverbs, it's not my will, it's what I love that's going to determine my steps. It's from the heart. It's from the wells. Guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. So just a couple examples. And this is from a Tim Keller sermon, but if money to you is not only good, but you love money most, what's going to determine your steps? The love of money. And I'm going to do a whole lot of things because that's what I love. That's what I'm pursuing. That's going to be what is going to put me on that path. If my job, if getting married, you can put anything into that place. That place, it's not my will, it's what I love, it's what I pursue that's going to help direct those steps. The camp-like experience can actually become that. Oh, I felt close to God there, so I'm going to run after that. It's the experience that I want. It's not the experience, it's Jesus that you're seeking after. And so this morning, just as you're thinking about what path you're on, and maybe you're sitting here this morning, you're like, man, I've been on this, I've made some really poor choices. I'm walking down the wrong path, and I can see where it's headed. I've made the wrong thing, the wrong thing I've loved. Here's the amazing thing about this table, guys, is that any point, there's on-ramps back to, there's access back to the table. And you can say, man, my life is headed this way, and I can see that it's a train wreck, it's not going to end well. But here's the hope, is that Jesus says, you're still welcome at my table. There's a place for you. You can come back, you can access that, and we can go on that journey of a different path. So second thing, we'll talk through this quickly. Traveling companions. Even though the path is narrow, it doesn't mean we can't travel with people. Ecclesiastes says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, one will lift up his companion. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him up. Again, if 2 lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one be warm alone? Though one may be empowered by another, 2 can withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. Guys, to be able to journey this, you need people around you. You need people to encourage you, to help walk with you, to pick you up when you fall. And when I was in high school, this has always stuck with me. The guy talked about having 3 kind of people in your life. You need a Paul. You need somebody who is a leader who has gone before you, a mentor in a sense, to help guide you and to teach you. You need a Barnabas. A Barnabas to Paul was like a really good friend. Surround yourself with friends who are going to point you in the right direction. And then you need a Timothy in your life, somebody that you're mentoring. Somebody that you're help bringing along. So, to speak to some of you older folks, people who've walked through life, there's a whole group of students here who need mentors. And you provide a guide, but something else that you provide. When I was with Shram, Solid Rock Outdoor Ministries, and I was doing my wilderness instructor training, it was like 4 or 5 weeks, and it was hard. We were in the rain, it was cold, there was times. And he said to us, the main instructor, he's like, you have to know that you can get through the experience that you're going to be leading students through. You have to know that you will survive. You're going to be okay. And one of the times I had a group of students in the sand dunes. We woke up to rain. It was cold. Everything was soaked. We had to pack up. By the end of that afternoon, it was snowing. We're at like 11,000 feet, and kids are freezing, starting to see some signs of hypothermia. And so as the instructor, get everybody in the tent, get them dry. I'm still cold. I'm still uncomfortable, but this isn't a new experience for me. I've been here before. I know that we're going to be okay. The kids are like, I don't think we're going to make it. And if I wasn't there, they wouldn't have. But see, that's the thing, guys. For those of you who've walked through life, you've walked through hard things. You've come to the other side. You've seen we're going to be okay. And it doesn't mean that what you're going through right now isn't necessarily easier or any different. You're still cold. You're still hurting. But you've been through. And so for these students who are starting to enter into some of those new things, like going to college, finding a place, finding a wife, finding a husband, all these big decisions, like you guys have walked that before. You know. So to be able to travel alongside with them and to say. So the question is, as the worship team comes up, for you students, are you holding on to your mountaintop experiences more tightly than you're holding on to Jesus? Are you holding on to, as you're walking this journey, what are you holding on to? What is that love? What is that thing that is going to fulfill you most? And as you come to this table, as you find your place, if you are a person who feels like, man, I earned my spot at this table, my goodness, my own piety, look at me. You know what? As you look around the table at the other people sitting next to you, you're going to be offended. You're going to be shocked at some of the people who are sitting at this table who got in because of the grace of God. And if that's your response to people around you, like, man, I cannot believe that person did it. What in the world? Francie told us this story in staff meeting this week that she was just with her family and there was son-in-laws and daughter-in-laws who came in and they were just like, you people are crazy. But I love it because you guys accept one another and you accept all your goofiness and it's a family. We laugh together. We have crazy times together. So on this journey, as you're walking along and as you come to this table, because there is a spot for you here somewhere, you are accepted, you are loved. What tends to happen is, as you stay here, that love starts to change you. And maybe you're at the end of the table, you're the person throwing food. Ah, I just got here, like this is awesome, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, it's a food fight, right? And if I'm the one sitting next to you, I have to look at you and say, dude, you're welcome, I love you. I'm glad you're throwing food right now, just don't throw it at me. But come here, let me start to show you what it's like to be in God's kingdom. And for those who first come into the kingdom, it's a whole new thing and they don't know what's going on. It's oh, God loves me, this is awesome. But as you stay at this table longer, it needs to start changing you. It needs to start transforming you. Because you start to experience God's love. You start to experience the love of other people. And you start to find your place there. So I don't know where you're at in this table. If you're on the other end trying to stay away from the food fight because you're like, I just want peace. That's okay. But just know that there are people who need that acceptance, they need that access, they need that love, they need that help to come through there. Maybe you're on the outside looking at the table going, do I have a place there? If you only knew what I've done, there's no way I could bring that to that table. You have no idea. Well, let me tell you, there is a place for you there. But you have to come to Jesus and you have to say, Jesus, I screwed up. Putting this at your feet. I want a spot there. So, as we sing this last song, this is promise that God has for us. No matter where we're at in our story, no matter where we're at in our journey, no matter how many times I've screwed it up, there's a promise that he gives to us, this promise of peace, that he's walking this journey with us, that he loves us. He's gone into the darkness for us so that we can have life. So let me pray and stand and we'll sing this last song. Father, we don't understand this love. We don't understand because in our world everything is about my goods and my bads. Did I do enough? Did I not? Jesus, we don't understand that we can just come to this table, that we have access. Jesus, I don't know, there's people in this room who maybe have not experienced that. I pray that they would listen to your voice right now saying to them, I love you, you are my son, you are my daughter, you have a place. Jesus, for those of us who we've kind of lost sight of that gospel message. We've made it about us and our own goodness. I pray that, Jesus, you can soften our hearts. You can help us to remind us of that goodness, that it wasn't our own goodness that brought us to this table, it was you. Help us to, with open arms, welcome these people so they can experience the love of God. Thank you for these journeys that we're on. We love you. We praise you in your Son's name.